We now need a way to add notes to our project that reference a list on our drawings. To do this, we'll use a note tag and schedule. For this project, I created a note tag family that can be found underneath Families, Annotation Symbols in the project browser. So over here underneath the project browser, if we look down, we'll find Families, Annotation Symbols, and then Note Tags. Now, the use of a note tag is fairly easy. You click on the word note tag, hold your mouse button down, and drag over until your mouse is inside of the drawing area. Next, let go and move your mouse until you get to a spot where you want to place the note tag in. In this case, a note tag is just going to be a circular shape with a number in the center of it, and that number is going to reference information on a schedule that can also be placed on the same sheet as your floor plan. That way, someone will look at that number, look up at the schedule up in the corner of your plan, and be able to know that this piece of information that's in the schedule relates back to this note, which is on the floor plan in this location. So I'm going to go ahead and click to place this first one in. By default, it automatically puts a question mark. The reason is we haven't given it any information yet. So I'm going to go ahead and hit escape a couple of times to that. I'm going to select on my note tag. Now I can either click on it and then click on the question mark and then type in information such as the number 1, or I could have typed in the number 1 up here and then just started to fill in the information here in the properties. And that's what I'm going to do in this case, is I'm going to go ahead and fill in the information related to this general note here on my properties. So to begin with this number 1, the note associated with it is going to be carpet. It's going to refer to the material that the note is currently on here in the great room. So I'm just going to type in carpet to that. Underneath there we have floor. Now, floor is going to indicate this is the first floor of the project, or this is the basement in the project. In this case, it's our first floor, but to keep things simple so I don't have to type a lot, we're just going to put the number 1 in. It's pretty self-explanatory. First floor, the number 1. Now that we've done that, we can start to place this note in multiple locations. I'm going to zoom out and zoom back in. Now, if I select here, I'm going to go ahead and use the copy command, and I'm going to copy it from here down to our master bathroom area. Now, the flooring material in our master bath is obviously not carpet, it's a tile. So in order to be able to indicate that, I'm just going to select back on my note, change this to be note number 2, and for the general note itself, I'm going to type in VCT, which is a tile indication. And finally, I'm going to leave floor 1 the way that it is because we're still on our first floor plan. Now, you might be wondering, where is this going to actually print itself off at, or where can I reference this information at? Well, we're going to need to create a schedule related to that so that we can have this running list of all of our different notes in the project. So let's go ahead and do that now, and we'll take a look at what information we've currently entered. So to accomplish this, it's not going to take a normal schedule. We're going to have to come underneath View up here, go over to Schedules, and then we're going to come down, not to Schedules and Quantities like we have up to this point, but we're going to come down to Note Block. Note Block references a specific kind of family inside of Revit. In this case, it's a note block family, and that actually is what this is, our note tag, this circle with a number in it. Make sure that that note tag family is highlighted. Move over here, and now let's give this a name. The schedule that I want to create here is just going to be called First Floor Notes. So once you've typed that in, go ahead and click on OK. Now it's asking, what information do you want to have in this schedule? This is fairly easy. All we're going to need to do is put in the number, which is the number that we see here, like number 1 or number 2, and click on Add. Second, we're going to want that general note information. So go ahead and add that and put this over here. I will mention that this could be renamed, so if you don't want this category to be called General Notes, you'd order to be called Notes or something else. It is possible to edit it and make those changes if you wish. But for right now, I'm just going to leave this as General Notes. I'm going to move up here and I'm going to select on Floor and add this to my schedule as well. While technically not required in order for us to get the proper information on our sheet, it will be required for something we're getting ready to do here in just a moment. So let's just place it there for now. And now that we've done that, come over here to Sorting and Grouping, and it says Sort By. click right here where it has the word none and change this to be no for number. So it's going to sort it by the number. So it's always going to keep it in order. Note 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. And if anything gets renumbered, changed around, it'll automatically put it in the proper place in this list of notes. Once you've done that, come down here and you'll notice there's an option here that says itemize every instance. We don't want this because if this has a check mark in it, it means that every time there's a number 1 with the exact same note, it'll repeat that note again and again and again. And we don't really want the same note 14 times in our schedule. So by clearing this out, if the note's there once, it'll only appear once in our schedule. There's one more thing that we need to do, and this could be the most important step, and that's a tab here called Filter. So go ahead and move up here to Filter, select on it, and go to Filter By. And we want to filter by the floor information. Now that's the reason why we entered the field information here and put floor in the first place, is so we could generate a filter from that information. Now that we're here, we want to make the floor equals, in this case, the number 1. You remember that we typed in the number 1 to indicate first floor in that note tag. This is the reason why we did it. Next, I'm going to take a look at this. I mean, this is looking pretty good to me, but we're going to move over here to formatting. And we're going to highlight on the word floor. Now, we don't really need to see this in our schedule. It has to be part of the schedule so that our filters can work, but we don't need to see it on the schedules when we don't need to see it as part of our general notes. It's going to be implied because when we place all this onto a sheet, the notes are going to be on the same sheet as the first floor, and everyone's just going to reference the numbers on the floor plans with the notes up in the corner. The floor is going to be implied. So from here, we're going to come down here to the hidden field and put a check mark next to that. So it'll still be part of the schedule, but we won't be able to see it. Go ahead and click on OK to that. Once you do, we can now see our first floor notes. We can see the number. By the way, this can be renamed as well, so it's either all uppercase or uppercase and then lowercase from there on out. And you can see that I could type it in here if I wished. You can see the numbers 1 and 2, and we can see it's related to carpet and the tile. So that you can see something else, let's go ahead and close out of this. One thing that I didn't do is I've only have a number 1 here and a number 2. What happens if I select on this and then copy this note down? Well, once I have this in this location, this bedroom still has carpeting in it and it would be called out. If I select back on the note, I notice this has the same information as this note here. And because we cleared out the checkbox that says itemize every instance, that means if everything is set up correctly, that the notes shouldn't be duplicated when we did this copying process. So let's go ahead and check that back on our schedule. We'll move back up to our schedules here and try to find that. Here we have our first floor notes, and here you can see there's still only one instance of that number 1 in carpet, just the way that it should be. Now let's go ahead and add a note down in our basement. And if we've set it up right, it shouldn't automatically number it here on our first floor notes. So we'll move to our basement floor plan. And we're going to add a note down there in the living room area. So I'm going to move down here on the list, find the family down here, drag the note tag out to tag the floor, and I'm going to copy it to right this location. Now I'm going to select on the little circle, click on the little question mark, and the information I'm going to enter in here is 1 because this will be note number 1 on this sheet. And also I'm going to change this information so that it says VCT underneath the general notes. Let me click out of there so it'll apply. And we're going to do VCT for the general notes. And for the floor, remember this is in the basement level, so I'm not going to do number 1, it's just going to be B for basement. Now that I've done that, I'm going to clear out of this floor plan view. And you can see it didn't add it here because it's been filtered out. It's not a number 1, it's the letter B for basement. But we're going to need to have a basement note sheet as well. So let's go ahead and create a schedule related to that. So I'm going to move up here. I'm going to click where it has first floor notes, and I'm going to right click on it. And I can duplicate the view. So just come over here and duplicate, and it makes an exact copy of that last schedule. We're going to rename that to be basement notes. Once you have basement notes, come back in here, and we need to create a new filter for it. So select Edit right here next to the word Filter, and change that number 1 to being a B. Click on OK, and now you can see it's only listing the basement notes because it has the letter B associated with that note block. So it's going to be easy enough to note our plans by just dragging the note block off, placing it in the location we need, and filling in the proper information. Then you duplicate your different note block schedules and then drag all this information onto a sheet, and it'll be ready to print.